Good morning. Didn't see you there. Hi, I'm George, and this is my boat, Poo Sticks. I bought her in December 2022, and she became my permanent place of residence in the February of 2023. In that time, we've been on some wacky adventures, visiting some of the UK's most iconic locations, such as Wembley and Hemel Hempstead. The idea of a portable home is appealing to many, and is regularly glamorized in TV and film. This is admittedly not what I had in mind. I'd love to compare myself to the likes of Doctor Who or Nigel Thornberry, but so far, I'm alone in making that analogy, and instead, on a handful of separate occasions, friends have compared me to that of a floating snail. So, as well as fulfilling the desire to be likened to that of a Time Lord or a mollusk, you may be asking yourself why else I would have wanted to move on to a narrowboat. Is it because I wanted a unique look at the UK Highlands? Apologies, I realise I've misread my script. It in fact says UK Highways.
This is very weird. It's only in its first aqueduct. Woo!
Or did I just want to make it difficult for toxic family members to send me post? Find out now in this video, this one here. Let's start by going back in time. To do that, we've got to get this baby up to 88 miles per hour. Hey Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough canal to get her up to 88. Canals? Where we're going, we don't need canals. Because this journey starts on the towpath. I spent 4 years studying at Queen Mary University of London. In that time, I lived in Bow, Hackney, Islington, and then Bethnal Green. With each move, I was edging closer and closer to the canal, until I was literally on it. I would walk to the office along the canal, I would go on my runs along the canal, I would go out dogging in parks adjacent to the canal, pardon me, dog walking. Every day, I passed hundreds of boats, constantly rotating as they sought to achieve their annual cruising miles. But there I was, living in a stationary flat with no outdoor space, paying thousands of pounds of would-be savings to dirty landlords. Meanwhile, there were these folks residing on the cut, enjoying summer barbecues on their roofs, living one step closer to nature and sewage than I was. The idea struck me with the force of an 11-ton vessel travelling at 4 miles per hour. I should buy a boat. And I did, following a decent 6 months of heavy research. I watched YouTube videos in which people explained the pros and cons and shared their experiences of day-to-day boat life. David Johns, otherwise known as Cruising the Cut, was particularly useful, and I had the fortune of bumping into him on one of my weekend runs on the River Lee. His advice was to get a survey. The boat survey, short explanation. Someone who knows what they're doing comes to the boat you're about to purchase in exchange for money and verifies whether or not she's about to sink. For the extended explanation, I refer you to David's video. I spent the latter half of 2022 learning about licenses, cruise control, mooring regulations, dealing with electricity, dealing with excrement, and of course dealing with the fact that you'll spend the rest of your days being one league quirkier than literally everybody else that you know.
Was it Genesis you said?
One thing I failed to learn in advance of my purchase, however, was how to actually drive a narrowboat. This felt like a minute detail at the time. I would also like to add that I still cannot drive a car, and on a family holiday to the Norfolk Broads less than a year prior, I was categorically the worst in the family at driving the cruiser we hired. But, like Great British cheese enthusiast Liz Truss, I'm not easily defeated. Now let's cut to the 21st of December 2022. As I settled into my new home, I thought, this is the start of a very, very exciting adventure. And after testing that she was in fact 6 foot wide using the only measuring tool I had to hand, myself, I decided to start my pirating antics by jumping out on friends Daisy and Caitlin,
Hey friends!
having not told them of my purchase.
One of the first guests on Poo Sticks. That's not your Prosecco.
The evening was going swimmingly, though not literally as we'd all acquired dysentery, until Fred arrived, needing a wee, and we had to figure out replacing the cassette in the chemical toilet for the first time.
Do you recognise that?
There's a lever.
Worst case scenario, we spilled shit everywhere.
Maximum space. They gave me a spare toilet seat.
Why would you need that? Does it go into any other room?
No. I think this must be so you can like if I wanted to have a poo facing this way, the toilets can't do this. You should be able to see it and just put it to the side for a bit, and no one's going to steal it because it's full of poo.
I'd go back to YouTube.
Maybe it doesn't work like a corkscrew. There's just not a button anywhere, is there?
Yeah?
About like come hither.
Right, can I just pull?
Pull with caution.
It's a bit restrictive, Jack. See, storage. She's out.
How's it going?
I've got a massive thing full of poo in front of me.
Yes!
Hey!
The hard work's going to be when I empty those.
Hey, Goosey!
Fred had a wee that he had truly earned, and following all of the excrement, pardon me, excitement, and a trip to one of Hackney's finest waterside pubs, it was time for bed. Douglas is sound asleep, bless him. He's got his pirate's hat, he's got Eeyore. Eeyore's also quite tired. Hello, this is my first morning, having woken up on the boat. Last night, in the evening, all the lights just suddenly turned off, probably because the batteries just went completely flat. I don't have electricity, but I have gas, so at least I could, have a coffee. Very exciting battery update. It appears to be doing something.
Harvey's Angel.
So I'm back after Christmas, delighted to be here. I've developed a type of boat anxiety. I've never had this with a home before, where if you go away for a week, over Christmas for example, having this constant sinking feeling that your home is sinking. We're on 11.1 at the moment. We were on 11.4 earlier. Running the engine is not doing as much as I'd hoped. Poo Sticks and I are departing until next year, but the previous owner has left a lot of drinks, including absinthe, like toasted Poo Sticks and a shade. I don't have a shot glass, but I've got the measuring device, so that'll do. Cheers to you, Poo Sticks, and all the adventures that we will have next year. Cheers to our hopefully many years together, where this will possibly be the only time I drink this. But if I run out of firelighters, Happy New Year. Uh-oh.
Thank you so much.
2023 had arrived, and on the 2nd of January, Tony came to teach me how to drive a boat. He's not been on one in a good 10 years, so we'll see how things go.
Now we're going to reverse, okay?
This was the first of many lessons, all of which took place quite early in the day. It's about 7 AM. It's pretty cold. Fire's lit, and I'm hoping that that will slowly start warming us up. When the time came to move in February, Tony was occupied, and it fell to my brother Joe to act as first mate, as I finally assumed my rightful yet questionable position as captain. It may have taken all day, but we did 5 miles and 4 locks, and moored as close to my existing flat as was feasibly possible, allowing me to move all my worldly possessions by wheelbarrow. With the unholy temperatures of the British winter, I had yet another night on Poo Sticks. It's always great when you got frost inside your house. It was time to settle in, and in particular, learn how to heat my new home. This is something that took some practice. I've lit the fire, and hopefully, I'll do a better job than last night. Some would argue that it's helpful to open the air vents and actually provide the fire with oxygen if you want it to burn. But in this moment documented here, I clearly felt the fire really ought to just get a grip and sort itself out. Update on the fire situation in the time it took me to make a coffee. With Tony's help, again, I got there. And a few days later, I was delighted to make pleasantries with my first ever fuel boat. It's a special boat, it's the fuel boat. I've not had one of these come past yet. I'm gonna go out there, see how this works. Topped up, got my bits for the fireplace. I've had my first fuel boat experience, got a nice little business card as well. And with the majority of the day-to-day workings figured out, Poo Sticks was due a start on some renovations. This included fitting new batteries, installing new lights and new blinds, doing a paint job, removing a headboard that just didn't feel very me. I won't be sleeping there for a while. As well as getting rid of some other bits left behind by the previous owner and making the place my own. I've just spent so long trying to find the source of this noise. All the while, I was completing my doctorate and enjoying life as a London boater. Living on a boat is something of a way of life, and on multiple occasions, I've been subject to the accusation of spending too much time talking about boating.
So you've got the Hertford Union Canal, that's the one that goes along Victoria Park. It's only a short canal, it takes you from Regent's Canal to the Lee Navigation. Bit of slack on your road, so you lost interest, okay.
One of the perks of this style of living is that if you don't like your neighbours, there's nothing stopping you from just leaving. That being said though, every neighbour I had was a sheer delight. I had a very nice day yesterday. I got chatty with my neighbour. We even swapped places. A little manoeuvre that he did for me because I don't know how to drive this thing yet. And then he even had a nice chinwag on his boat for a bit. I bumped into this particular chap again a month later whilst walking back from work at 9 PM. He invited me onto his boat and I ended up staying until 2 AM and polishing off half a bottle of rum in true pirate fashion. The next day, I overslept by 3 hours. Here is the aftermath. Every 2 to 3 years, narrowboats need to be lifted out of the water to have their hulls repainted, protecting them from corrosion and thus keeping them afloat. Pooh Stick's time was soon, so I booked to have the job done in Watford in the summer. I finally had a voyage planned, and in April, I set sail west. I moored up in Little Venice and experienced a very posh week living in Paddington. I then moved on and had a very wet week living in Wembley. But the sun joyously returned and I was delighted to start sharing the canal with the spring chicks. Over the remainder of the spring, I completed my voyage with the help of many excellent crew members mooring in beautiful spots along the way. It is fair to say that I truly left London. Then, on the 19th of June, the time came. Tony and I arrived at the marina and were met by an almighty crane, ready to raise Pooh Sticks from the water. I spent the week living on stilts and used the opportunity to do some other bits in the exterior of the boat. Pooh Sticks looking funky fresh, the time then came to return to the water.